All right. Hey, everyone. I'm excited today to have Andrew Taylor, who's the publisher over at InvestorPlace, one of the MarketWise companies. He's part of AltaPub now, which is InvestorPlace and TradeSmith together are the brands underneath that. And what we're going to be talking about today is their thinking on how and why that they're launching a new brand in this market, in this environment. And I'm just really excited to have this conversation because we haven't really talked about this with anyone, the idea of planning a brand out and the reasoning behind it. And so thanks for doing this, Andrew. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, well, glad to be here. Excited for the conversation. You and I got together not too long ago and had a nice cup of coffee and a little bit of talk about industry history. You go longer than I do. I've been in the industry a little over 10 years. I think you outrank me there. As we were chatting, I think it became obvious, I think to both of us that, hey, there was maybe some interesting stuff to be talked about, and happy to have the opportunity.
Yeah. And so I think this is a great, let's jump into it with you guys have, or maybe give a little bit of history here on Investor Place, because
Yeah.
you are this phenomenal brand. You've been around, and when you go back to the days of Phillips publishing in direct
Yeah.
mail in the 90s,
Yeah,
what
no,
are your
that's
kind of
exactly right.
overview?
So if you go all the way back, it's to 1974. Tom Phillips launched, as every good newsletter that's ever been launched, it occurred in a garage. At least that's the story. That was in Bethesda, Maryland. Tom Phillips launched it. That was his first of what became really, as you say, sort of an investing, a publishing powerhouse. Tom eventually ended up having Health and Wealth and B2B and a number of others. We were Phillips Business Resources for a long time, predating me. In 2008, Tom sold what was then what we colloquially called the wealth division to a private equity shop. That went through on January 1st, 2008. Great for Tom, not so wonderful for the private equity shop that purchased the business. At that point, it was renamed InvestorPlace. Fantastic brand, a wonderful brand. To your point, many of the sort of most cutting edge things that had come up in the industry for a long time were done out of the Phillips world and specifically out of what became InvestorPlace. So I joined in 2013. At that point, we were definitely InvestorPlace. I had the great and good opportunity to run InvestorPlace.com. We were eventually sold to what was at that time called S&A Holdings, now MarketWise. In late 2017, it was the best place we could have possibly been sold to because they really had learned a lot of things about how to run and grow a business like ours that really did breathe a lot of new life into InvestorPlace. It was always a great company and always a great brand, and now in the new MarketWise world became significantly more sort of meaningful in terms of its market share versus kind of where it had been for a while there.
Yeah. And it's, I know you guys have exploded, grown quite a bit. You guys at Investor Place seem to be, I'd say, especially in the last year and a half, some of the more successful publishers, I would say, at this point, in terms of just catching the market, and timing on acquisition, really well. And I think it's almost like right now you guys are kind of the ones to watch.
Yeah, well, that's a very flattering thing. It's I often say that if you happen to get one or two things right, it allows you to think you're the smartest guys in the room. That if you happen to get one or two things wrong, man, it makes for some hard times. We've been on both sides of that. To your point, I do think we were pretty well positioned to take advantage of 2023. That wasn't unintentional. You sort of alluded to the coming together of InvestorPlace and TradeSmith. We formed, and I know you talked about this recently with Brian Hunt in this venue. Brian did a nice job of describing that combination. It really allowed us to unlock some opportunity for InvestorPlace that we may not have been able to unlock independently, because TradeSmith really is at the absolute cutting edge of some of the technology that they're implementing in terms of bringing some of the greatest tools in the world to a retail investing audience. We, InvestorPlace, have had big names and big brand. We got Louis Navalier and Luke Lango and Eric Fry. And the coming together of those two did allow us to position accurately and fairly and reasonably that we really were at the cutting edge of both investing in AI and using AI for investing. Both of those have been meaningful for us in 23, and hopefully we'll stay at that cutting edge in the coming months and years and decades. Yeah. We really do think in terms of decades, right? Because this organization has been around since 1973, 1974, I guess, the official founding, but that's a long horizon.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we really try to think in sort of those long horizons.
Yeah, and I think everybody in the industry can, burn a candle and say thanks to Tom Phillips, because without Tom Phillips, there would be no publisher's exclusion. And we would all be regulated by the SEC because he's the one who actually backed I forget the gentleman who had been accused or had a case with the SEC, and he's the one who actually funded his legal defense to take it to the Supreme Court and said, no, this is a First Amendment business. And so we as an industry owe him an enormous amount of gratitude.
Yeah, and I it's funny, I was sharing with one of my colleagues today how I personally felt a little bit professionally unsure of where I wanted to be until I got in this industry. And almost immediately upon getting in this industry, I said, this is what I've been looking for. I didn't know it existed until I got here, but this is what I've been looking for. This is the kind of a combination of great, insightful investing guidance that I personally care about. Thoughtful, call it performance marketing, call it direct response marketing, call it whatever you want, but sort of the numeric, the amazing combination of numbers-based marketing and big ideas and big themes that come from copy. And that was such an attraction to me, and frankly is a big reason why I think what we're talking about today is important.
Well, let's get into it then. Why are you guys looking at starting a new brand right now after we've had, largely the hardest, year or so in industry history for at least the last 10 years? A lot of people are kind of reeling in that as things are picking up again, they're just kind of trying to recover from all the debt and other issues that they've had. And you guys are looking at launching a new brand. So what's your thinking around why now is the time to do that? And could you just elaborate?
Yeah, why now? Yeah. So, Brian Hunt and I, Brian being, co-CEO of Alta, along with Keith Kaplan, Brian Hunt and I have been talking for years, 2, 3, 4 years, about sort of our interest in what I'm going to call, in fact, I've picked up this terminology from an interview that you did with Mark Ford. He talked about the worldview franchise, right? And so, as I mentioned, I've been in the industry for 10 years. There was some worldview franchises that were pertinent when I got here in 2013, but they were kind of a little bit on the waning. And then certainly by 2018, really the sort of prominent idea was growth investing, innovation investing, big, bold ideas, and huge claims, right? And so I think we all got, and guilty as charged here too, we all got very good at big gains claims, and you use these words, and I agree. We sort of lost the soul, right? So when I used to walk around the old InvestorPlace office, we had packages up on the wall. They were all direct mail packages, and they had huge, beautiful ideas, right? And so this all predates me, but that was certainly part of my just like introduction to this industry. And then you go back and look at some of the huge packages in the history of this. They're huge ideas. And so what we wanted to do was sort of, to some extent, return to that. And the reality is, when you think about kind of worldview, there's a lot of ideas that can come with an understanding that I'm about to describe. And I think it is as true here in 2023 as it was in 2008, when you kind of step back and you say, American institutions have failed us. There's a lot of people who view that American institutions have failed America and Americans. We have Fed policy. When you think about those institutions, we got Fed policy that no one can understand, right? We got fiscal policy that is good for politicians and the majority of Americans who are net tax takers, not net tax payers. It's great for them, but it's not so good for the folks who are those net tax payers. We've got a political system that universally lacks trust. I'm not talking left and right. I'm talking universally lacks trust, right? We've got a changing global economy. Yeah, it is true that COVID accelerated the pace of that change, but there was a changing global economy anyway. We've got a tax on American business shrouded as ESG, right? There's a lot of folks who look at that and say, what the heck is that? I could keep going on, but my broad point is we believe that the next decade is going to be an age of chaos. I would suggest to you that the last decade has been pretty chaotic too, but the next decade is going to be even more chaotic. And if you kind of step back and say, okay, all that makes sense, Andrew, but what does that mean for an investment newsletter franchise? Well, let's think about that. If you invested in the S&P on January 1st, 2000, you didn't make your money back until 2013. That's a long horizon. If you did that same investment in the S&P, I think it's 27 months ago, we're just catching back up. And now we're like, my point is there are long horizons where people, it's really tough to make money. And so what we at InvestorPlace think we're pretty good at. On our best days, we are good at the combination of finding a big, marketable, copyrightable idea, delivering it through great copy and marketing, bringing in a lot of subscribers, and then delivering them a wonderful investing experience. And so we think that the opportunity exists to do that in this worldview. And so we are launching and excited to launch what we think is going to be the next great franchise in this industry, which we're calling FreePort Society. And so later this year, we will be launching the FreePort Society. It is going to be a fairly standard free to front end to back end and a series of back ends. That's not going to surprise anyone. We're not going to break any ground there. Where we think, going to break ground is on the notion, there's two nouns in there, right? There's Freeport and then there's society. Freeport is this notion of an area designated to have, kind of low taxes to encourage economic activity. That's all very straightforward. The society, we want to bring in experts and voices to our subscribers beyond just our chief investment strategist. We'll get into who that is in just a minute. But we want to bring that person or bring other voices in as a society to our subscribers. And we think that opportunity there is kind of at the sweet spot of financial publishing. Great marketing, great copy, great ideas, and also good investment advice.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, you just did a lot there to talk
about. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. I do like this is a passion of mine. It's one of the things that I love about the business. It was always kind of a great publisher, a great franchise has a view on the world, and what that view is then pulls through the marketing, pulls through the editorial and the product. It's great, and that's where I had the conversation I had with Brian Higgs, publishing. It was his kind of thesis that, like, in a lot of ways, this last 10 years or so, when things were booming so much, we as an industry kind of lost our soul because we lost that worldview piece. And it's fundamental to the relationship building. It defines the identity of the customer who is subscribing to it. And it's a core feature of what all the great newsletters were for so long.
Yeah.
And so bringing that thoughtfulness to the business, I think is one of the things that we're trying to do with these conversations. Brian Hunt has been phenomenal, obviously, elaborating and illuminating how to think about this business from the editorial and idea side.
And John, I'm going to suggest to you that over the last decade, it made a lot of sense to focus on big gains because the market was, up and to the right. Mm-hmm. It was a series of logical decisions, none of which I criticize in any way, that got us away from it. But it also means we got as an industry away, as you say, from just sort of those those muscles, being good at these things. And so we at InvestorPlace want to bring it back. Talk about what the core of Freeport is. We talk internally about, more 1776, less 1984. And there I'm referring to George Orwell's 1984, not Ronald Reagan's 1984.
Right.
But we have no desire in being a political franchise. I want to be really clear about that, right? This is not a political franchise. This is not a left and a right. Truth is, there's stupid stuff going on all across the political spectrum. What we want to find is distortions. We want to find the distortions that create great investing opportunities. And so I want to talk with you about one of the things that I think is one of the great distortions in investing, history over the last 25, 30 years. I'm not suggesting that this is going to be exactly what Freeport does. I do want to talk with you more about that, but it is, to me, so representative of the kind of investment opportunities we are looking. So go back to early 90s, CBS breaks story about the big tobacco companies. It is politically advantageous for the state's attorney generals to go after the tobacco companies. They moved towards what ended up being a settlement in 1998. That was politically advantageous. If you go look at that stock, that's the stock prices. I'm specifically speaking to Philip Morris that became Altria here when I reference these numbers. Stock price fell in half. But the dividends kept being paid because there was still cash flow. People kept smoking. And they kept, with all these sort of semi-sin things, let's be honest, in the mid-90s, it wasn't that sinful to smoke, right? But they kept smoking. But all of a sudden, you had a stock that whose price fell, split adjusted from $10 to $5, whose yield kept between 5 and 10%. Oh my gosh. If you had invested in those in, say, 1996, when this was sort of a hot and heavy, that stock price ran to $75. We're talking about a 8, 9, 10x return on a stock that paid between a 5 and 10% dividend all the way along. What an amazing opportunity for someone who was interested in finding that market distortion. Now, we're going to go find those next market distortions within Freeport. Now, that is a wonderful thing for our subscribers. They're going to make a lot of money. I have no idea if we're ever going to be able to come up with a copy story around that, right? We got to find other copy stories to bring them in. But at InvestorPlace, one of the things that I think when we're at our best, we get right is we have great copy stories that bring people into products, and we deliver well against that copy story. But then we also deliver a great investment portfolio and guidance and research. And so that's really where we are.
So what I'd love to kind of outline here that is so interesting about how you guys are thinking about this to me is that, so you have a thesis on the broader economic and cultural kind of zeitgeist, right?
That's exactly right. Good word. Yep.
And from that, rather than simply say, okay, that's good enough, like, this is great, we think we've nailed this, we have this position, then you're drilling down and you're saying within that zeitgeist there is a tension that's happening that is maybe it's politically driven, it's special interest driven, it's all those things that are going to get people hot and engaged. But then you're saying that those issues very specifically are creating a very specific, I won't say investment vehicle, it's more it's creating a certain type of inefficiency in the markets due to those forces.
That's right.
And so you have a big idea on the zeitgeist, the emotional state of the audience, and how all of that drills down into starting the beginnings of an investment thesis.
Yep.
And so when we talk about worldview, we're not talking about like liberals are bad.
Yep.
Like that's a very generic, or Republicans are bad, or conservatives, or whatever it is, or everyone's out to get you. It's this combination of perspective on the times, the audience, and drilling down into specifics on how you start to form your the or how you start to sift the landscape of investment opportunities, I guess.
You
It's
got it.
cohesive. It's
Yeah,
cohesive.
and that's the intent, right? And so where we really try to push ourselves is, so many times in this industry, you can sort of come up with a great promo and then you extend that promo and say, well, there's your product. What we want to do is say, let's find the interplay between a great product, a great investment thesis that will make people feel like they are part of this society, part of this thing, and then work backwards to the promos. Right? The promos are matter. They are intensely important. But to some extent, what we want to do here is get that that worldview, that those emotions, that feeling of one's self, develop a product around it, and then work backwards to the promo. So we've got 5 major themes. By the way, we're 2 or 3 months from launching. These 5 are going to evolve in the next 3 months, and they'll evolve over time. But we know that there's a lot of passion around the notion of sort of anti-ESG, right? And if you want to talk about market distortions, probably the best market distortions going on right now, like the Altria that I just discussed, are going on right there, right? There's a lot of people, a lot of powerful interests that are pushing this notion of anti-ESG. And a lot of folks on the other side just say, this makes no sense. How can I profit? So we want to do that. We've got this notion of great companies, the currency of the rich man, right? And so the Altria example, I think, is a pretty good example. But if you sort of step back and think about even more broadly, like, hey, we are trying to appeal to someone who has a worldview, but also someone who has a position in terms of their financial position, right? The ability to care about this and really engage with it. Those folks need to be very thoughtful about what they invest in. There's a component of a meaningful component of their holdings that should be great companies. Mm-hmm. There may or may not be a good story around it. There's probably not a great story to be told by even the best writer in the world about why you should hold Hershey. But you should hold Hershey, right? And so we come at it from that perspective. Deglobalization, now we're getting closer to some copy ideas, right? We believe, as I mentioned earlier, COVID sort of fast forwarded this notion of deglobalization. It's still in 2023. I still can't get stuff that I want at a time frame that I want. Like we got a water filter on back order for 6 weeks. For like, what are we talking about? This is crazy. COVID showed that our global supply chains were how fragile they were. There's some investing opportunity and there's some copy opportunity there, right? InvestorPlace right now has a front end package called the Rebirth of America with Eric Fry. That Rebirth of America is around sort of the return of not all industry, but thoughtful, advanced industry. So deglobalization. There's the next theme for us is inflation and dollar debasement. The important thing here is, and I want to draw this distinction. I think a lot of folks, when they hear inflation, dollar debasement, say, well, inflation, what do? Well, you go buy gold. And well, you actually do 2 things. There are 3 things. You go buy gold, you hit the military surplus store and pick up MREs and you head for the hills. And that's the investment advice that I think most folks look for. Instead, you know what? We don't come at it that way. We come at it from a perspective of, hey, in order to keep up with inflation, we all agree on what the causes of this inflation are. It's painfully obvious what the causes are, and it was painfully obvious that it was going to occur. Brian Hunt was talking about this as the M2 money supply was increasing, right? You got to keep up with technology change, and you got to keep up with companies that are so good they can pass their price increases along to customers and keep margins.
Yeah.
Great companies.
Yeah, I think there was a great story. I think Charles Mizrahi, who's an editor in the industry, pointed out to me one time we were hanging out that in stagflation, Buffett like wildly outperformed gold like 600%, and he was buying things with price elasticity.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, there's different ways to do this than the standard kind of gut reaction to gold.
Yeah.
So I love these things because this, just to put it into the context of previous conversations and how we think about FinPub.
Yeah.
Again, Brian Hunt is the one who really kind of elucidated that idea of like you should have these big multi-year trends that your promos are kind of
Yep.
speaking to, because if you get a winner, you don't want that winner to be dead in the water in 5 months because the storyline changed so much, first of all. And you have something that you can keep, like an ongoing story that's unfolding around this trend, for your readers in terms of getting engagement and investment decisions. It's a great
Yeah.
frame.
I think that's right. And I want to talk about the fifth theme exactly in line with what you just said. And that fifth theme for us is exponential progress. The reason I say this is, wait a minute, this is like a worldview franchise. What are we talking about exponential progress here for, right? And the reason we think it's important is because just because we believe in liberty, right, doesn't mean we're going to put our head in the sand and say that AI doesn't matter. And so the truth is, if you then move forward one more or a few more steps, one, we believe it's important as an investing thesis, but it also gives us a lot of copy gold, right? So you referenced Brian Hunt. Brian Hunt was, I remember the day that I walked into his office and he looked at me and he said, I think I've got the next 100,000 name idea. And he was wrong. He had a 250,000 name idea, and that idea became Eric Fry's Technochasm, and in large part that was written by Mike Palmer, and then Louis Navelier's One Percenter, written by Stephen Molise, which outsold Technochasm. Collectively, it may not be exactly at 250; it's at 240 and change. You'll forgive me for rounding up. After all, we are marketers here. But it's heaven and hell promos, right? Stephen Molise talks about this. I know others in the industry do too. These are heaven and hell promos. These are things that say, hey, if you are on the wrong side of this great, fast-moving exponential change, you don't want to be on the wrong side. You want to be on the right side. That is pertinent even in a worldview franchise. In fact, I would argue it's maybe even more pertinent here because you feel it more intensely.
Yeah, and those are phenomenal. I always thought of them as like, in sales and in copy, we talk about the crossroads close, but I always thought it's almost like the crossroads open. It's kind of like, like you right out of the gate, it's like there's two paths forward. One group is going to get destroyed economically, and one's going to profit wildly. And it's like you're either, and it's stark. It's there is a line in the sand, and you don't want to be caught on the wrong side of
it. And to someone who's clicked on your ad who feels that in their bones every day because it is in front of them every day in the media and in their life, it is a powerful driving force. Again, for us, as we think about it, absolutely it's about the marketing and copy. Don't get me wrong. We are, as you said, we're financial publishers here, but it's also because we think it's the right thing for their portfolios. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
and I think about that, like, again, like this thought of what it means to be a financial publisher, right? Because it is this, you could be an analyst. You have to have analysts. You are an analyst. Like that's a fundamental part of the business. Obviously, that's the product. Then you have the marketing, the copy, the ideas. But a publisher is someone who synthesizes both of those together in a way that speaks to the audience. And so, to me, like my favorite part of that is when there is a worldview. That defines it, because it's almost like it gives everybody knows that it's like there's this road now that we're all walking down together.
It's interesting. It's hard to create it, but once you've created it, it makes everyone else's job so much easier. And I think it is one of those where folks like me need to have the discipline and the dedication to do the work up front to go create that understanding of what the products are that have both great investing opportunities, great copy and marketing opportunities, and that overlap, and delivers a great experience for a customer, in order that everyone else in our organization can line up behind that. To your exact point, it makes it easier for everyone else because it's so understandable. Now, that's not to pretend like there aren't going to be what I like to call balls and strikes calls in terms of the copy. Hey, have we gone too far here? We're not gone far enough here. Of course, but at least we understand the roadmap, or if you will, using the balls and strikes analogy, the rules, right? Okay, it's letters to knees and within the over the plate. Like, okay, I get this. Now I understand where the balls and the strikes are and can be called. Okay, we as professionals, we may agree or disagree on well, no, it was a little wide of the plate, or not. But realistically, we at least have the construct to make these balls and strikes calls on things that are very ultimately copy is abstract. Marketing
Yeah.
is abstract in many ways.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's talk then about the society piece, because again, I like how within the overarching idea there is the more mechanism, I guess.
Yeah.
That's inherent in the structure of the franchise. So, what's your
Yep.
thoughts on what do you mean by society here?
Yeah. Well, it starts. We do have a chief investment strategist. That's important. We got someone who cares about the investments. A fellow named Charles Sizemore. I've worked with him for a number of years. He's been in the industry a long time. He's got a great academic pedigree. Got a I will admit I'm relatively envious of. He's got a master's from the London School of Economics. He's got a CFA. He's got all the picks that you would want from a copyer's perspective. We talked about Visa gave a 13x return and 8x on Apple, and he was talking about Bitcoin at $111, right? Not too many folks who made a buy call on Bitcoin and then went up 65x, But so he's got all of that. He's also that was sort of like necessary but not sufficient for us. And so the sufficient part was he also holds the worldview that we're talking about.
Right.
He likes to find these distortions, and so that made a lot of sense. But he's also, and I know this because I've worked with him for years, he is the type of person who wants to bring great information to his subscribers, whether he wrote it and thought of it or someone else did. And here in late September 2022, we aren't in a position that we're going to announce who all the members of the society are, but suffice it to say we are on our way to bring in what we viewed as some of the greatest experts in terms of Fed policy. Hey, who can help us think about what the Fed's going to do in terms of interpretation of what's coming out of Congress, in terms of, wow, what's going on in this whole ESG investing world and where are those distortions? Energy policy. But we view it even broader, right? So we think that someone who is a member of the FreePort Society, yes, they want all that stuff we've talked about, but they also care about their retirement. And we want to bring in someone as part of the society who will be able to just be a retirement expert. Hey, here's some tips to make the most out of your 401k or to make the most out of your retirement. So the idea behind society is it allows us to really take advantage of those many voices with smart, thoughtful commentary. Now, John, you and I were talking about the rise of what I call, sort of the Substack publisher. There's some really good stuff coming out of there, really insightful stuff coming out of there. And we believe that Freeport Society will allow us to participate with those individuals in a way that really does bring great value to our subscribers, and we think that we know a thing or two that'll help those folks as well.
So then that kind of gives you a pretty broad opportunity to create product within this franchise, within this
Yes.
idea, because you have multiple experts. So it's not simply you're going to have one expert who has his front to back
Yep.
stack. You're looking at the customer from a more comprehensive view, where it reminds me of this story of those guys that I know who they helped launch a wealth advisor off the back of a newsletter, and they found that the customers at first, they were only telling him to put the advisor their money in with the guru, like his advisory, his picks. And so their average AUM per client was like $100,000.
Yeah.
And then once they realized that, wait, like normally if you're an advisor, you would have this full solution, right? And they just offered that as well, and they went from 100,000 AUM per customer to 850,000, right?
Yeah.
So conceptually, it's similar here, where it's like you have like, yeah, I have my retirement interests, maybe I have an income interest.
Yep.
Because I'm at a certain point, I have bonds, I have things, and so you're saying that you can bring in the best guys for those as part of this without requiring the main guy to be the expert on everything.
Perfectly said. That's exactly right. The people that we expect that will be attracted to the FreePort Society are going to have holdings beyond the 5 core tenets that we're talking about for our front end service, and we want to be able to bring them. We think the society aspect allows us the flexibility to bring them the best investment advice in terms of back end services,
Right.
all across the spectrum. There, that is precisely right. Yeah.
This is to me this is core FinBub,
Yep.
right? Like this is like the thinking that is like the essence of how we start to think about these businesses rather than I think it's very easy running day to day chasing the next promo to just chase the next promo and the
Yep.
next kind of thing. Oh, I have this guy. I mean, how can I put this together? I know I need a guy for this, but there's not like a lot of thought that goes
Yep.
into sometimes how are we approaching this franchise um, from philosophically down and how that then trickles down tactically.
John, that's exactly right. We at times you can get so lost in a promo or a list or a tactic, all of which are important. Every one of those is important. There also has to be a view that says, okay, how does someone move from free to front end to back end and across back end and in a mega? Um, that has to be thoughtfully done to work at scale. And so,
Mm-hmm.
to your point, we're if we get this right, we think we'll be able to do that. But none of it matters. None of that won't occur until we're delivering a great experience for these folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember not long after InvestorPlace got acquired, uh, Porter Stansberry came down and he came and talked with InvestorPlace. And I remember the first words out of his mouth. He said, "Our customers are not rubes. They are intelligent, thoughtful people, and we always need to make sure that we keep that in mind. We always need to make sure we're delivering them a great product because they'll know if it's a good product or not." And that for me was one of those. In your career you have these like moments, the before and the after moment, right? And that for me was one of those before and after moments. Always remember that because it's sometimes when you are just looking at a promo trying to optimize a funnel, it's hard to keep that in mind.
Yeah. I think that there's. I mean, we've seen this, like, and I won't name names and stuff, but culturally, there's been groups that have had people who are kind of key executives or copywriters who hated the customer, and it's like that's a really unhealthy kind of culture at some point where you don't like the customer, you think they're stupid, you think they're idiots,
Yeah.
then the intentionally or unintentionally, that's going to color your decisions on a lot of things that are just going to reduce the quality of everything that goes out.
I agree with everything you said, and then I'll add to it. I just don't want to work for that company, right? Like
Right.
that's not the company I want to be part of. I want to be part of a company that looks at customers and says, yes, how can we deliver them great value? And in doing so, we've got no doubt that we'll figure out how to sell them a lot of the products and some of them quite high priced, but like how do we deliver them great value? Phil
Yeah.
has always felt to me like a really good starting point
Yeah.
uh,
And
for for creating a great business.
almost like a perfect example of that. I was again, I had a short little happy hour last night, and I was talking to a guy who was a researcher for one group, and he did some work for Porter on the side. And he's like, it's remarkable to me because I'm so angry sometimes when I'm asked to write a report, a fulfillment report, and they just want 2 pages. And
Yeah.
that mentality is essentially they just give them something, just give them something, versus when Porter has him write something, it's like a 15 to 30 page deep dive on a single thing, and they want a complete analysis, which he's like, he was a professional researcher. He's like, this
Yeah.
is what I want to do, this is what you should do, an actual report versus just some quick thing to say that you fulfilled on the thing that you promised in the copy.
Yep.
And that's the kind of decisions that I think start to pull through when you don't have the respect for the customer.
Yeah, our customers are not rubes. They'll actually be able to understand your 30 pages, right?
Right.
That's and now there's a burden there. There's an editorial burden to make. I mean, because 30 pages is deep. It's hard, right? Like it is um, it is it is a hard challenge to ask a writer to write thoughtfully at length and do so in an entertaining way,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you can pull that off, you are going to educate. Brian Hunt, often at Alta, we talk about the 3 E's: educate, enrich, and entertain. You can pull that off. That's worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. So then let's switch over to kind of the more like nuts and bolts then of launching a new franchise now, because I know
Yeah.
that means staffing up, that means um, infrastructure. It means all the things that you have to do to kind of get it going.
Yep.
So how do you guys kind of approach, like, say, okay, we're gonna start a new franchise here. We have the idea. Um,
Yep.
we know what we want to do. We have this great like set of ideas. The fun part is that, and
Yep.
now it's like, well, it's brass tacks. So how are you guys going about like putting the bones together to get to launch?
Yeah. So the good news is we have I have a partner in this, a guy named Justin Fadgen, who has run InvestorPlace.com for several years, and he is just a spectacular executive and leader and really thinker, and he's really leading this initiative to bring this product to market. He relatively early on in our process, once we said, yeah, we want to do this, but we forced ourselves a very specific moment where we modeled out a 3-year pro forma that included expectation of sales, but also just the fixed cost of, like, imagine we don't sell anything. What's this thing going to cost for?
Mm-hmm.
What is this dollar value commitment this organization is making, right? And that was an important moment for us, because that was sort of like the before and after. Are we in fact going to do this? Are we willing to commit this amount of dollars to this exercise? There's a further conversation around inventory and execution. That was an important moment for us, because it was the moment all the Alta executives sat around and said, yes, it's worth it. So I would encourage anyone who thinks about these things to do something like that. Not everyone's model is going to be as good as Justin's. He's a heck of a thinker on that stuff, but the discipline matters. And then, Alta is built with the intent of growth, both organically and, via some level of, organic plus acquisition over time. We don't exactly know what all that means, other than that, like, we in fact sort of structured the business so that we could have growth like this. So for us, we have a big advantage that for us to grow, we only needed 3 or 4 folks to make this thing work initially. So we went out and got, as I mentioned, Charles Sizemore. He joined us recently. We're hiring a managing editor for the role. By the way, anyone listening who is interested in that, fantastic. Email me at ataylor@investorplace.com. If you have a background that's pertinent here, we want to be in touch with you. From a copywriter perspective, we aren't going to put copywriters right on this. Our copywriters sit at Alta, and the right person or people will work with us. But we're always looking for great copywriters, and anyone who's listening to this and say, I want to write that, please, again, get in touch. And then we need a marketer, right? And so we are actively looking for a marketer to run the sort of marketing component of this. And so it really is only 2 or 3 new hires for us that will let this thing get off the ground. And then, I think we'll all look at it at some point down the line and say, yes, it's growing. Keep going. What more do we need? Right. More writers, more editors, more marketers, more copywriters. But for us, it is sort of as simple as having those kind of 3 or 4 people.
Right. Yeah, because you already have an operational infrastructure.
We've got an operation that can do a lot of the mechanics.
And then as it grows, it will get more dedicated resource, I would imagine.
That is exactly right. Yeah.
So no, that's fantastic. I love kind of just walking through this planning process.
Yeah. Again, back to that sort of before and after moment of like, okay, are we all in? We know what this is going to cost, and ultimately we are. We're a profit business. We're part of a publicly traded company. We need to have the discipline to say, all right, what's the dollar value?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like kind of a know or go moment where it's
yep.
If you have any doubts, this is.
Yeah, I'll make one more comment on that. That it all, so many times in this business and frankly in every business I've ever been in, but this business especially, there's so many incredibly creative people. There are more ideas, and frankly more great ideas than there is time in the day to execute on. And so one of the things that process allowed us to do is really make a commitment that yes, we are really doing this. Mm-hmm. Instead of what you sometimes see, and we're guilty as charged here too, right? Sometimes see as like an idea that almost creeps up on you unintentionally. right?
Right.
And oh, well, okay, let's go. That that you if you don't have the discipline to put it up against other great ideas,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, if you will, murder board these things, you might not end up with the best of the ideas
Right.
actually getting the time and effort and energy. You might just have it because someone had some extra time on the side, and then it got big enough that it was almost like, well, let's keep it going. We
Right.
didn't want that. We don't ever want that. We want to be a little more intentional, or maybe I should say a lot more intentional about it. And so
Mm-hmm.
we really do think that this is, for us, we're all in on this, right? We made that go, no go commitment. We are all in. This is going to be successful. We think it's going to be the next great franchise for, for Alta, for MarketWise, and frankly, for the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love it. And I love this. Yeah, it's almost like I love this return to worldview
Yep.
perspective. Uh, it's the I feel like that's one of the many things that we've lost in the world with the destruction of newspapers
Yep.
too. So uh, there's a loss of, it used to be like in here in DC, you had the Washington Post, which is still there, but you used
Yep.
to have the Washington Examiner, right? You had a more conservative
Yep.
paper, and so politically you'd kind of have these two
Yeah.
differing ones, and you had all these small papers that had different views on things, and they would focus on different things, and that was
Yeah, and you'll
it's
remember you also had the Washington Times, and if you
yeah,
were, you were a Washington Times family or a
that's right,
Washington Post family,
that's
right?
right.
And that was, and people who wanted to be extra thoughtful got both, and that made a lot of
Mm-hmm.
sense also.
Right.
But you're right, that was sort of early tribalism via media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is great, Andrew. I appreciate it. I love having this conversation, talking through this. And anyone who's looking to join Investor Place and MarketWise, and specifically is interested in kind of exploring opportunities with Freeport,
Yep.
reach out to Andrew.
Yeah, that's right.
Happy
So
to
we
make any
got with Freeport, we
introductions.
got some jobs. We got managing editor, copy editor, system managing editor. We are hiring outside of Freeport as well.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, just go on the investplace.com website. You can find those jobs
Yeah, I'll post a
there,
link.
or just send me an email, ataylor@investorplace.com. Happy to make sure that everyone gets in touch.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this, Andrew. I appreciate it. This is great.
John, thank you very much for the opportunity. I try to catch every one of the videos that you drop, although I will admit
Thanks.
I have no intent of watching this because watching yourself on
Oh, I
video
know.
is cruel and unusual. But I'll watch the next one and the ones after that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Andrew.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye bye.